Hi, I'm Margaret, and welcome to Garden School. It's the very beginning of fall. It's fun to watch the seasons change. But in a way, it's kind of sad too, because we see some of the flowers declining and then eventually they're gone. And we can hardly wait for next spring and next summer for those beautiful flowers. Well, today we're going to talk about getting a head start on some of those flowers by making seedlings or by seeding now in the fall, and then carrying those plants, those little seedlings, over in the winter. Let's go take a look. So I was looking through my box of seeds just to see what I had that I maybe had forgotten about, wanting to start in the fall so that I would have seedlings to plant out in the spring. And I found a couple things that I can plant right now from seed, and that is Love in a Mist, Nigella, and also Oriental poppies. I have some of those seeds that I saved from a plant. I have some parsley that I also saved from a plant that had gone to seed. And then I also have some calendula that I can grow from seed at this time. There are many, many flowers that you can start from seed now, and is a good idea to be able to start from seed now. Things like violas and pansies, wonderfully. Even the lunaria, the silver dollar plant, things like that. There are some that you want to wait for sure until the springtime or until early spring, very late winter. And this is also specific to your zone. When your first frost, when your last frost dates are. So you'll want to consider that and find a list based on your growing zone. That'll work. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start these seeds in containers, and some of them will barely need to be covered. Some of them need a light covering, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Well, this container holds petunia right now, but earlier, last winter and into the early spring, it had some violas, and look what I have down here. I have some little seedlings. Those are great. That is really nice. And you can see that the seeds that dropped during the spring, and I think even the early summer, germinated. Lots of them germinated. There's so many in there. And I have some little plants. Now, I could pot these up into their own container and give them a little more space, or I can thin these. Either way, I'll decide what I want to do on that. Maybe potting them up, because then if I have them in a smaller container, it can go into the greenhouse or under cover when we get super cold in the winter. But that's a nice thing to look forward to. Some violas. There are some columbines, Aquilegia, that I think I planted these from seed 2 falls ago. And now they're doing pretty good, and some of them have gotten some nice size on them. And I think perhaps if I can keep them over the winter, I will probably want to protect these. Then I may get some blooms from them next spring. That'd be nice. So most of these seeds will need light to germinate, and that's why some of them, for instance, the Oriental poppy, doesn't want to be covered at all. And when you see how tiny the seeds are, well, okay, these are not the culinary poppy seeds, but they're so super tiny that you're not going to cover them. Just sprinkle them on. Kind of beware of how many you're sprinkling in a particular area, because they are so tiny and they're dark, and you're not going to be able to see them. So just press them into the soil as I'm doing like this. Just press them into your container, and then of course you'll want to label it so that later you'll know what that is growing there. Now, for instance, the Nigella, the Love in a Mist, that is a very small seed too, and it's black. There's one right there you can kind of see. And but these also will need some sunlight to germinate. And it says, the instructions that I found said barely cover. So I'm just going to barely cover them with seeds. So light can certainly be accessible to those seeds as they try and germinate. And then of course I'm going to label it. Now there's other seeds. For instance, here's some calendula. This is really visible here, and notice how different in size the seeds are. That's kind of interesting. So can certainly see those. And this wants to be covered about 1/4 inch with soil. So we'll do that, and then we'll get a marker in there. Another one that wants to be covered is parsley, and you can see the seeds there, which is nice to be able to see that. So I'm going to cover those with about 1/4 inch of soil and then press it down and label. Now my potting medium happens to be nice and moist, so I probably don't need to give these guys any additional moisture today. If it was dry medium, I would certainly want to moisten it first. And you know, maybe I'll change my mind about that and later in the day come by and just give them a light mist. Keep things settled and get things starting right here. So there we've got our 5 characters for seeded flowers, and hopefully we will get some germination. Now it may take a little while to see some germination on these, so be patient. Now of course you're going to want to watch your temperatures and where you have these placed. I would say to place them in an area that doesn't get full sun, because these are small containers and the medium will dry out pretty quickly if it gets warm. So I would say a place that has shade much of the day, maybe half of the day. Remember to water them, sprinkle them from the top, be patient. And then when we do get to the colder times, when we're getting close to our freezing temperatures, depending on how the growth is, you might want to put these in a protected place, like a little cloche or a cold frame or a little greenhouse area. They still will need light, so you don't want to bring them into a darker place, but where they can get light but still be protected from the super cold temperatures. And then when they get to a certain stage in the fall and in the early winter, they'll kind of go dormant and their growth will kind of stop. But that's okay, because once the days start to get longer again, they're going to take off, and then we're going to have some beautiful flowers. Oh, and herbs. I forgot about the parsley. It's a herb, but also flower. Then you'll get some plants that will be ready to transplant into the garden. You also want to think about the root structure on some of these plants. For instance, parsley and the oriental poppy, they do have quite a substantial taproot when they get mature. So they are not going to stay in containers like this for all that long. And you may have to watch, like especially the oriental poppy, it might not do super well to transplanting, but I would say still go ahead and try that. Get them out of the small containers once it's time, so that the roots can continue to develop. Well, I hope you're able to find a list of seeds that you could start right now if you're interested in doing that, and just have that experiment of seeing how they germinate, what does well, what doesn't do well, and then get a little head start on next year. It's going to be a fun project and a fun experiment. Well, there is always more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye.